So good morning all. Today is Monday, November 16th. This is the information session for the for the District Authority Scholarship, previously known as the Dogwood District Authority Scholarship, but now it's simply the District Authority Scholarship. It's a scholarship from the Ministry of Education that FISA helps to manage on behalf of independent schools. We have today the Metro Vancouver Committee Chairperson, Máebh Carraghe, and she is going to talk to us about the procedure for this year. So Máebh, take it away, please.
Okay, thank you for that, Janet. Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't on mute there. Thank you so much for joining us. I know it's super busy this time of year, so yeah, I really appreciate your time to come to this meeting just to sort of figure out what's happening for Dogwood next year, or DAS. I'm the same as you, Janet. I keep referring to it as the Dogwood, but yeah, so basically what I'm going to do now is just sort of go through the process for next year, and then there'll be question time after. I'm sure you'll have lots of questions. So yeah, so obviously we're sort of forecasting that, you know, by the time the adjudication night rolls around, everything probably won't be back to normal. So we're going to yeah, we're just figuring it out as if there's still going to be restrictions in place due to the pandemic. So obviously last year, I know it was very much last minute up in the air, and we did sort of do the best we could basically. And I know it wasn't ideal for a lot of you guys in terms of, like, you know, you were just given a certain amount of scholarships to distribute. So this year we are going to do it differently because we do have more time to sort of organise things, and just to make it a little bit more fair, we're just basically going to bring the adjudication process totally online. Okay, so it means that there's you know, we're not going to be giving it back to you guys this year. If you get me, yeah, we're not going to be distributing each school a number of applications. It's just going to be the same as it would have been for an adjudication night, only it's going to be totally online. Okay, and because it is going to be online, it's not going to be one adjudication evening. It's going to be done within a number of weeks. So yeah, that's the first thing. The second thing, because it is going to be a total online adjudication, this may be more work for you, so I do apologize for this, but I do want it to be, the application process to be totally digital. So I know, you know, in previous years we were doing the Google form, which was super. It just made it just a lot more easier to streamline and things like that. But then, of course, you know, we were still having the reference letters and the personal statement and you know, the additional documents handed in as a hard copy, which, you know, worked fine. But because it is going to be moving onto an online adjudication platform, I'm going to want that all digital this year. Okay, so I know it's it might create a little bit more work for you, but I just think it's going to be easier for when it comes to the time that I'm organising the adjudication times and things like that. I can just literally, because I'm sure you are aware when you were doing it yourselves this year, I'm sure you had to go and scan all of the paper applications, and that's what I had to do for our school. So yeah, I don't want to have to do that for all of the applications. So yeah. So having said that, I would like to make the deadline, just keep it to the sort of same deadline of March 12th, okay? So that's just before spring break. It's the Friday before spring break, and we'll make that for 4 p.m. Yeah, and I just figure that will sort of give us enough time for, you know, to organise the adjudication process and things like that. Okay. Yeah, so basically I'll just sort of talk about like the Dogwood coordinator's role in this, and then we can sort of speak after, and if you have any questions or any suggestions to make it easier on yourselves, that's totally fine. But yeah, so my sort of vision at the moment would be, obviously I know you either mail or come to my school with a big box of the applications. So this year, I'm just sort of envisioning you sending me Google Docs or Google folders, sorry, which contains a Google folder for each student, which will contain their personal statement and their letter of support from you. And I also have a digital copy of that letter of support, which I will send all of you. And then the teacher reference letter as well, okay? And of course, we don't call for a transcript anymore, so we don't need that. And obviously, the student then will also have completed their Google form, which would come straight to me, but I also would like a copy of their Google form within that digital folder as well. Okay, so all of that by March 12th will be super. And then after that, so they don't really need to worry about their their portfolios by then. And then we'll be in contact, like obviously I and the adjudicators will organize times for the adjudication process to happen, and then we'll be in touch with the students to ask them to then send their portfolio submissions as well. So I know for art, for dancing or fine art, it will be again a digital submission. But I do know for for the likes of maybe leadership in sport, it will be more of a conversational style interview. So there'll not be there'll be no need for an actual portfolio submission. Okay. So I think that is all from me at the minute, but of course I know you are going to have lots of questions, so that's absolutely fine. Actually, maybe before I put it back to Janet, I will talk about maybe eligibility. I'm sure you are all very much aware of this, but yeah, as long as a student is in grade 12 and they're planning on going to university next year, and they are a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, they can apply. It actually doesn't matter where they matriculate to. If it's within Canada or the US or the UK, they're still eligible. But of course, you can refer the students to the BC Ministry website as well, so that they can double check their eligibility. Okay, so yeah, I think that's everything from me at the minute. So Janet, I'll put it back to you.
Yeah, thank you. Great. So we just wanted to have a chance kind of early on. It's not super early, but we're still in November, for you to be aware that there are changes for this year's process, and just to really start to get a key contact list going, a robust key contact list, so that Máebh can communicate with the right people in all of the schools. One of the things that often happens is that when FISA sends an email, we send it often to the school secretary, and it doesn't always get trickled down to the right connection. So if you haven't filled out the survey on behalf of your school with a key contact, please still do that, or type your school and whoever your contact name and email here into the chat, and I'll transfer it over into the survey. So that's one of the really important pieces, is knowing who is helping students along the process at your school. And then in terms of eligibility, if you're not sure if a particular student is eligible, I did put the website there on the chat. And maybe, if you don't mind, maybe a little bit about the different categories and some of the ways students can show evidence. And last year, if there was any confusion about what category a student should apply for, how, if you have any advice to the people on the call around how to make sure the student sees themselves reflected adequately and gets into the right category to even have a chance. Oh,
yeah, for sure. So yeah, I'm sure if you have done this before, you are all aware of the sort of speciality areas and then the subcategories. So and before I sort of get into that, just to let you know that a student can apply to up to 2 applications, but they must be within a different speciality area. So for example, they could apply for fine art, and they could also apply for community service, but they couldn't apply for let's say music and dance, which are both within the fine art category. Okay, so yeah, so in terms of like speciality area, yeah, we have fine art, we have sports, we have leadership, and we also have community service. What else have we got? But just before, I've mentioned leadership. So there is leadership, and there is also leadership in sport. Okay, so if a student, for example, is applying for leadership in sport, maybe they're trying to showcase their you know, their skills and experience in maybe captain a team or several teams, they would apply for leadership in sport, so within the sports category, okay, not the leadership category. So all the information should be in the form, but if you do have any questions and you're not sure of what you know, of what category to apply, feel free to, you know, to shoot me an email. And also we have applied skills. That's the one I'm missing. And I feel there's always the most questions around applied skills, because we have a lot of subcategories within applied skills. But every year there's students, like I remember last year we had a student who wanted to apply for, she had a business. She had a business as a makeup artist, and she had her own Instagram page. Yeah, we were just wondering what category she would apply under, because it's, you know, it's still a great skill, and that's what the Dogwood is all about. We then got her to apply under applied skills. So yeah, and I remember one year we also had a guy that applied for his for showcasing his skills as a yo-yoer, if that's the correct title. So yeah, I'm sure there'll be more, there'll be new sort of skills showcased this year. But yeah, everything is welcomed. And yeah, please just shoot me an email if you're ever not sure of what category maybe to apply under. Also, one more thing, just when we're on that kind of note. So I know obviously, you know, with the pandemic, you know, everything has been so up in the air, but also these guys are obviously in grade 12 now, but the pandemic obviously happened, you know, towards the end of the grade 11 years. So I know a lot of, like, if a student, would like to apply for maybe sports, they mightn't have a lot to showcase right now, you know, from the middle of the grade 11 year until now, because obviously I know a lot of competitive sports, you know, aren't happening right now, and that's absolutely fine. We still encourage these students to apply, and we'll absolutely take into consideration, you know, like the pandemic, and we'll look at at their work that they've done before, and what they're doing now, and what they're what they're doing now basically during the pandemic. So yeah, I'll put it back to you, Janet.
Thank you, May. Thank you. So lots and lots of people are putting their email contacts into the chat. Thank you very much. We'll make sure that we get those into a list. But now if you have some questions around, you know, the process or eligibility, whatever we can answer, we'll certainly try to do that here. And if there's a question we can't answer, we'll go scrounge up the answer and get it back to you later. We will, as I said, this will be recorded and available on the FISA website, and we'll also send out the chat notes. So Brenda, nice to see you, Brenda, had a comment about using the auto reply or the auto feature on the Google Docs so that students get a copy of the responses. So Maeve, I'm sure that's something you can set up. Let's talk just a little bit about the adjudication nights. So last year was, you know, it really was a conversation about how do we make sure that students get these awards and that we're not leaving the money on the table because the ministry gave a certain number of allocations to be dispersed, and the adjudication in person was a no-go back in early April. So we relied on the schools to help out, and it worked beautifully for the year. It really did. We're so pleased in how we were able to get students their awards. This year there will be adjudication. It just won't be in person on one grand evening. So Maeve, I know you spoke about it, but maybe go into whatever detail you can about how you're thinking about setting it up. And I'm not sure if right now you want to make a call out for adjudicators and that type of part of this process.
Yeah, thanks for that, Janet. Yes, actually, I will talk about that. And yeah, I will make this a call out, actually, if anybody would like to help out or feel like they could help adjudicate as well. I really would appreciate it. So if you just shoot me an email, that would be great. Last year was my first year as the district coordinator. So Anita Irani passed me on, numerous contacts, like adjudicating contacts, which was great. And we, had things, the ball rolling and had things organized, but of course everything fell through. So yeah. But exactly. So the adjudication night, there's not going to be one adjudication night, just because it's online. So I don't think that'll be feasible. And yeah, I actually think if we do make it, and I haven't exactly the dates in mind yet, because I do want to sort of speak to the adjudicators first. But I'm thinking, like, obviously we have the deadline for March 12th. So I'm thinking the adjudication process can take place between the end of April to the middle of May. So maybe between 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah, and yeah, so obviously I will be in contact with you, closer to the time. And obviously, if you can help out with adjudicating, some of you online right now may already be on my list of adjudicators. And if you are, I definitely will be in touch. But yeah, so for example, I don't know what way you, as in like individual schools, did it last year. But the way St. George's did it last year is the way I am envisioning the whole of the district to do it this year. So the way we did it, we still actually had an adjudication process. So for each area, we had adjudicators, and we for each student that applied, we had a 15 to 20 minute slot for a student to meet with an adjudicator. And if that was something for like leadership, that'd be more of a conversational style interview. And if it was, for example, fine art, if it was for maybe 3D art, the student would have had to submit a portfolio to the adjudicator, which would have been an art teacher in St. George's, and they would have actually not they would have just sort of rated, would have used a rubric and rated their work, and that's how they would have come up with recipients of the award. So yeah, for those fine art students, one-on-one interviews weren't needed, and I think that's something we can do this year. I don't think there'll be any need for one-on-one interviews for all of the categories. Okay, but of course, please feel free to ask questions on that. So I'm just reading.
Yeah, there is a question there about it. So I think the answer around the adjudication is you're still working out some of the details, and part of it will be, once you know who your adjudicators are, what their preference is and how it will work. But in terms of supplying evidence and portfolio, I think I hear you say that some categories will still require a submission of a portfolio, some won't, and some might be a combination of a portfolio and an interview.
Yeah, that's correct. So and with that March 12th deadline, that's just the application. Okay, they don't need to worry about any portfolio submissions. Then I will then reach out to them with further information about their portfolio submissions if needed. Okay, but in the application form, it will already, because it'll go without saying that, like, for fine art, for dance, for acting, for drawing and painting, there definitely will be some, there will be a portfolio needed for sure. So that can be something they can work on, but it won't be for March 12th. But yeah, for leadership, for volunteer work, it'll be more of a conversational style interview. And obviously we'll take in reference letters very much into account with those kind of categories.
And there's some questions around the qualifications of an adjudicator. So we generally look for people who are experts in the field. They don't need to be connected with a school. They don't need to be an educator. They need to be able to assess quality of the category.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, your help is definitely welcomed. But yeah, of course, yeah, whatever, yeah, for example, if you were to be an adjudicator as a maybe second language, you would obviously need to be, for example, French, you would need to be fluent in French, obviously. And if you were wanted to be an adjudicator for maybe leadership or volunteer work, yeah, it would be good if you, you know, if you maybe ran the service club at your school, just so that you sort of know what to look out for as well. Okay. And obviously fine art. So if I have any, I know last year I think we had Craig help us out. But yeah, if we have any, you know, art teachers, because that is a huge category that the students apply for. So yeah, if we have any art teachers on here, your help would be greatly appreciated, and music teachers as well. Okay. Yeah.
And then going up a little bit in the chat, there's a question around how the awards are distributed. Is it even among the 10 categories, among the categories, not that there's 10 categories, or is it weighted based on the number of applications? How do you determine which category gets what number of awards?
Okay, so obviously last year it was extremely different, but we were just making the best of what we could, really. But as far as I'm aware, you know, the way it worked in previous years, it was sort of divided evenly among the categories. But I suppose that can be determined when the number of applications I get, and if there is, you know, a category that has so much more applications than another, that can be a conversation I can have, I suppose, with yourself and Sean, Janet. Yeah.
I think that's maybe the ethos of this award. It needs to be responsive to the context. So if there's you know, a groundswell of interest in a certain category, to limit it to a predetermined fixed number of scholarships might not be the fairest way. Máebh just gave a shout out to Sean, so I'm going to ask Sean here in the FISA office if he could introduce himself and maybe say a word or two about your experience with the District Authority Scholarship.
Thank you, Janet, and good morning all. And it is really a pleasure to join in today, and especially because I know you're all here for the same reason, is to make this opportunity available to students. And just to give you a sense, independent school students, there was approximately 450 received the scholarship, over 650 applicants for these scholarships. And as mentioned, you know, this started several years ago. It was a district scholarship, and independent schools, FISA. We petitioned government to make independent school students have that opportunity as well. So it is, the allocation that comes to independent schools is based on a population of grade 12 students in the province. I do want to give a special thank you to Janet and Máebh, as well as the other two regional coordinators. Last year, no one was really anticipating this pandemic, and so adjustments had to be made, and there was a lot of work that went into that. And then also many of you played a role in that and doing the adjudication at your school. So thank you so much for that. I think we are moving into a new direction because of the uncertainty and moving to more virtual. And really thank you, and we really appreciate you participating in this and helping giving us feedback and to make this work the best that it can. So thank you.
There's a question in the chat about eligibility. So it is, again, this is a Ministry of Education scholarship, so we have no flexibility in the eligibility criteria. And one of the conditions of eligibility is that the student must be a Canadian citizen, sorry, I'm reading it, Canadian citizen or permanent residency, landed immigrant, at the time of registration in the school year for which the scholarship is awarded, so their grade 12 year. They must be a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, and that would be their immigration status. So a student on an international student visa is ineligible for this scholarship. I'll type it into the chat.
Yeah, so if you've any more questions about the process or even any suggestions, obviously I've sort of just told you what I would like, what would work best for me. So if you have any suggestions, what you think might work a little bit better, like absolutely let me know.
And also, if there's any veterans here on the line, you know, what do you do to help your students? How do you do the process internally at your school? Maeve shared a little bit about what happens at St. George's, or especially last year. But like the tips and the tricks of a successful application are here for sharing also for anybody who wants to, realizing that if you share your industry secrets, your students might end up with less scholarships because you suddenly told everybody what to do. But in the spirit of helping all students to get what they justly deserve, if you have any ideas, please share.
Well, I'll jump in here a little bit. I come from a small school, firstly, so it's kind of easier to do this, but we've always viewed this scholarship as an opportunity to tap students who might not get other scholarships. So that's kind of our primary goal with the district authority, especially because the criteria is so wider than just a leadership or service or citizenship or academic one. And so we really hand tap students who might not otherwise apply for scholarships or receive scholarships. So that's not a trick of the trade necessarily, but that's the process that we go through at Brockton.
A request from me on behalf of Maeve and the people that she has helping her is simply part of the application process is that someone at your school signs off on it. We really would like you to review the student's portfolio or whatever they're planning to submit so that you have eyes on it before it gets over to Maeve, and that it's the appropriate quality that would reflect a scholarship of this nature. In the other session, which we held just a few minutes ago for the Fraser Valley, an example is if a student was very active in their elementary years in a particular activity, but that waned in the high school years, it's probably not something that this scholarship would want to be reflective of. So, you know, if there could be some gatekeeping done at your school to make sure that the quality of the applications are appropriate, that would be helpful.
I just see that question from Hank. Hey Hank, so yeah, Hank is asking if each student puts all their materials in their own Google form, and then you collect the Google forms and then send them to me. So yeah, or whatever process works for you. But yes, ultimately I want a Google form or a Google folder, sorry, for each student. And that Google folder should contain their Google form that they would have sent out that would have came to me anyway, their personal statement, your letter of support for them, and their reference letter as well. So yeah, my vision is that a student can start to build their own folder and send it to you, but obviously due to your own policies. But for example, we won't allow our students to see their own reference letters, so that would be something I will get the teachers to send me the students' reference letters, and then I will put them in the student's Google folder. So that will be something that a student can put in their own Google folder, if that makes sense. Oh, Paul, I just seen your response, so hopefully that that answered that for you.
And there's a question around when will these applications be available? Maeve, I think you might have mentioned some things, but a little guidance there.
Yeah, so yeah, they're not basically I just sort of wanted to have this meeting first, just sort of more of a brainstorm. I know we didn't there hasn't been a lot of clarification, still very much in the early stages. So yeah, I just sort of wanted this meeting first to make sure there was no like suggestions from you guys to change up the application form at all. And then I will sort of finalize that form. But yeah, I think we already have it in the works. We can make that form available by the end of the month for sure, so that students can get working on that over the winter break. I know it's not due to March 12th, but yeah, if they've got free time over the winter break, they may as well start it.
So in terms of the send out, once Maeve gives us the final form, and keep in mind that there are 3 regions and each region has a distinct form to use. The process is slightly different among the regions, and in the past students have sometimes used the wrong form for their region and sent it to the wrong person, and often that's caught and then the form is redirected, but it certainly slows the process and it could end up with a student not being even evaluated because their application wasn't received in the right manner. So very important that you help your students to know which application to use and where to return it to, or how to return it. So FISA will send out information to all schools through our general email contact, both member and non-member schools of FISA. And then Maeve will also get the key contact email distribution list that she may then be doing follow-up emails with you as things get more nuanced and fine-tuned. So that key contact, once again, super important. So we'll do a blanket coverage to all schools, but we'll also do then a specialized distribution list to the people identified as key contacts. We also post these on the FISA website. We really just want to make sure that any child or any student that's eligible knows about it and has support at the local school level to get started on the process. One thing that we've heard of in the past is that the application looks so lengthy that some students just give up because they open up the document and it's 15, 16 pages long, and they just close the document because they don't want to necessarily wade through all that. It's a long application because each category has a descriptor, and the descriptors take time. Maeve, I think you were saying that you might be pulling out the descriptors into a different standalone document. Is that something that you're still thinking of?
Sorry, I was on mute there. Do you mean the descriptors for each category?
Yes, that's what I mean.
Yes, that's what I was thinking actually. Because at the minute, the application form, I'm sure you feel the same. It's quite lengthy, yeah, it's quite lengthy. So yeah, I was thinking of having the descriptors as a separate, like have the application form sort of nuanced, so it's not as long, and a student has a clear understanding of what exactly they need to do to be eligible, such as, number 1, the Google form, number 2, their personal statement, reference letters, and then the letter of support. Yeah, so I'm thinking of having then the descriptors of all the categories as a separate document, but it'll be within the application form, so you can click on it, like it'll be a link.
And then we have a couple of questions in the chat. So what if a school doesn't use Google Docs? How will they get their items submitted?
Okay, yeah, I just seen that, Tracy. Yeah, so that's fine. So you get your students, sorry, I keep saying guys because St. George's is a boys' school, but your students will still be able to fill out that Google form, that initial Google form. But yeah, in terms of, yeah, I've obviously been talking about Google folders. Yeah, if you don't have Google or if you don't use Google, that's okay. There's, yeah, several ways. You can just maybe email me the stuff or email me the material, sorry. So get your guys just to PDF their applications as one PDF. That would be super. And then you just email me each student's application via PDF document. That's absolutely fine with me. And then I will transfer that into a Google folder, which will make it a little bit more easier for the adjudication process.
Perfect. And a question about a reference letter. Can it be from somebody outside of the school, for example, a soccer coach?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that makes sense. Obviously, if a student is applying for his, you know, maybe leadership in soccer, obviously it would make sense for it to come from a soccer coach rather than his French teacher. So yeah, of course, yeah. That's why it's so important for that letter of support from their university counsellor, because you know if it is a letter that a reference letter that is coming from you know an outside coach, it's great just to have sort of that seal of approval from the school. I don't know if there's any more questions. Feel free to unmute yourselves if you do have any questions.
Oh, good one. Thank you, Greg. The application fee.
Yeah. So obviously, yeah, that will be back this year. Because obviously I know this, like last year we didn't need that at the end of because of the adjudication process. It didn't follow through. But obviously this year, even though it's going to be an online adjudication, we're still going to need adjudicators, and they're going to be taking, you know, their own time. You know, they're maybe they're going to be working through evenings, so we definitely would like to be able to give them some sort of honorarium. So that's where that fee is going to, or that the fee is going to come from that. So yeah, it'll be a $10 application fee, but that will be per student. So if a student is applying for 2 applications, they don't need to pay twice. Okay, they'll just need a $10 fee. And also on that note, obviously it's absolutely up to you what way you work that fee. If your school you want to sort of absorb that fee yourselves, or if you do want to charge the students. But my ask, the same as last year, would be to yeah, just to get one solid check from you, so from your school, rather than, you know, numerous $10 bills. So yeah, that would help me if you could continue to do that. Good question though, because I actually forgot to mention the fee, so thank you for that.
So the main mode of communication, the first main mode will be FISA. We'll send it to our entire school contact list, and we'll send it directly to who has been listed as the key contact for the DAS. So that will be when the application is ready. That will go out. We'll also post it to the FISA website. I'll put the link in the chat where it's posted. But after that main blast, then it will be up to Máebh to be sending things directly to the key contacts. So we won't keep spamming the front office. Máebh will direct this to the people that are in charge of it going forward. So that's, again, another reason why the key contact is so important. And Tracy's asking about students could apply for more than one. Is that a recommendation? I'll let Maeve talk about recommendations, but they can only win once. So even if they apply twice, they're limited. This is a government requirement. They can only win in one category. And as Maeve mentioned earlier, it needs to be divergent skills. They can't be linked skills inside the same subcategory or the same big category, such as fine arts. It could be fine arts and entrepreneurial management, which are different areas. But I'll let Maeve talk about whether that's recommended or whether that increases her workload.
Yeah, I know. Maybe I should have mentioned that. No, so yeah, students can absolutely apply for more than one category. But yeah, as Janet said, they only can win in one. But yeah, like that's not to say that like most students will only apply for one, and we absolutely don't encourage our students to apply for two just in case. It would only be in the case if there were equally, you know, as sort of qualified and had a lot of skill and experience within two categories, and they were a bit like, well, I actually think I would have a very good chance for winning with both. And that also would be something that as a university counsellor you would streamline as well. Okay. Like if a student came to me and was very qualified for, let's say, dance, but also thought, oh, I did a little bit of volunteer work, so I might also apply for community service, you know, just in case. I would say no, you're definitely more qualified. If you're going to win it all, you're going to win for dance. So I wouldn't add to the workload of the adjudicators by applying for another category that you've a little bit of experience in. I hope that makes sense.
I think it goes back to my earlier comment of some assistance in the gatekeeping, not to try to be elitist and weeding people out. But if there's many of you are involved with your school processes for determining award winners. You know, if a student is just doing a Hail Mary because they think there's money on the line, this is not that scholarship. There's always more applicants than there are awards given. So just please help to walk your student with the process. And even though there is, another thought, more applicants and awards, it's not a huge margin. Like there's around, maybe, I know you gave me the numbers last week, but maybe 2 to 3 people vying for a one spot type of thing. Some scholarships you have, you know, 600 people vying for one award. This ratio is not that type. It's a much tighter ratio of maybe 3 to 4 people vying for an award. Thank everyone for your time today. Please give Maeve some time to get the actual application tidied up, and then that will be sent out to you, and that may generate some more follow-up questions. So thank you, Maeve. Thank you, Sean. Thank you everyone for attending, and thank you for supporting the students in this rather nice opportunity. I can let you know that I think the ministry first gave it to FISA to help with probably a little bit less than 2 decades ago, and we had a grand allotment of 34 awards, and now we're well over 400. So we are succeeding in helping students in this regard. All right, everyone. Have a lovely Monday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you. See you.